Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. It's bank holiday. We are back looking ahead to game week 37 and reviewing game week 36. I'm joined by regular co-host Mr. Dean Jones. Dean, how are you, mate?
I'm good, mate.
Good stuff. Thanks for coming along. And Ian Irving, the host of Talk to the Devils podcast for The Athletic, the host of the fantasy show a lot this season as well for the Premier League, and at two amazing games this weekend. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm okay, pal. Are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all.
Good.
I've actually missed out on quite a bit of football this weekend, so I'm relying on both you two to fill me in with what. I mean, yeah, I've watched
Always
highlights of
dangerous.
match of the day, but I
Always
didn't watch many
dangerous.
live games.
Yeah, what were you doing, mate? You had this. How did this trial go? Because FPL Chai, look, well, so I'm holding your daughter. So clearly, you two have gotten very well since you've met.
Mate, I dropped Chai at the train station to get to Luton Airport this morning at 5:15.
Oh my goodness!
Which was an early start, but my daughter actually woke at 5:10, so it was quite good timing. So yeah, I left the house at 5:15. He got on like the 6 o'clock train, and yeah, Chai has left Chateau Batici, but yeah, it was good to see him. We had 48 hours together. We played in this trial game. Hoping Chai makes the team. I'm hobbling down the stairs this morning. Like I'm in a bad way. I think I played 60 minutes, probably 60, and by 40, I knew I'd cramp before half time. I started cramping before half time. I'm that unfit.
Yeah,
Big pitches, mate.
Johnny, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm strictly 5-a-side only these days.
Honestly, these 11-a-side pitches on 4G, it's like running on concrete for an hour. It's like, it's painful. My knees, my ankles, everything, the cramping. But no, it was fun. But let's talk football yesterday, proper football yesterday. I got to the pub and watched the second half of Spurs Liverpool, and I was delighted to see Liverpool winning with Spurs players blanking. Loads owned Son. I benched Son. And then Spurs got a couple of late goals in. How did Spurs look in attack? Because when we look ahead to game week 37, they play Burnley at home. Now, that is a fixture which offers more ceiling than any other bench boost combination double game weeker. So Son captaincy is still an option, but maybe not after yesterday.
One thing I will say is that they looked far, far better when Richarlison and Maddison were on the field. Spurs as a team obviously didn't function great in the first, 60, 70 minutes, something like that. But the tails were up towards the end of the game. They left it too late to rescue anything from that match, but it did give me a little bit more optimism that they could offer us something, not just in 37, but 38 as well, because it's Sheffield United away, of course, on the final day. One thing that I did note, though, was that Richarlison looked extremely threatening through the middle. Now, I'm a Son owner like you are, Gianni. Dean, I don't know, are you on Spurs attack
I'm
as well?
Son, yeah, just Son, yeah.
And throughout this season, when Richarlison's been in the team and playing up front and Son's been on the left-hand side, I don't know the exact stats. I've not got them to hand, but it feels like Richarlison's always come out the better of the two overall. So if you're looking at ways to get on the Spurs attack and you don't own them, I think I'd probably argue, even though he didn't start the game, I'd go for Richarlison over Son, to be honest. And in terms of Son captaincy, I mean, he still looked all right. Don't get me wrong, and he was as involved as anyone getting them back in the game late on. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Andrew says, morning, would you consider Fernandes out to Richarlison? Need funds for another doubler for Van Heck? I've got 2 transfers, so no cost. It's not a bad one, is it?
That was my plan.
Yeah.
But many are going to be blocked by 3 Spurs. Like, I can't make that move unless I sell a Spurs defender. And I was all okay with selling a Vicario or a Porro, but now I've got to sell Maguire instead. We'll talk about Maguire later. So if you can accommodate, I definitely think Richarlison offers a higher ceiling than Bruno, given the fixtures.
I think as well, Richarlison offers an opportunity for us because there's going to be a lot of people looking for budget. You know, not exactly the same as that. Obviously, there will be players on Van Heck, but also on Maguire as well. And that could be quite a smart way of freeing up funds. Also looking ahead to the final day, because one thing about yesterday, Mohamed Salah looked back on it, and I think he's going to be an extremely popular captaincy option in game week 38. And that's going to mean a lot of people are trying to find funds for that. So maybe Richarlison could be a good enabler for us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I got rid of Salah this week, but it was because I had to bring Haaland back. I knew I couldn't go this game week without Haaland. So I've done that, and it's fine. It's obviously paid off. But yeah, you're right. Like, you see Salah again, you're like, oh, how can I get him in as well? I mean, I've got De Bruyne, and maybe I go from De Bruyne to Salah somehow. But Yeah, it was a strange old weekend, wasn't it? In terms of Tottenham, I mean, they just concede so many goals that it's absolutely ridiculous. And this is the problem for Ange going forward. Like, we knew, everyone that had seen Ange teams before he'd taken over at Tottenham was like, oh, the matches will be insane. Like, it's just end to end. It'll be like 4-2, 4-3, 3-1. And you're thinking, well, that's unsustainable in the Premier League. You can't be a manager like that in the Premier League. You won't survive. It happened. But Tottenham have actually continued throughout the season. I'm not sure how they fix this, but they've got to plug up this defence in the last couple of games. I think it's one of the most important things we need to see from them in these last couple of matches, and to whether we can trust them going forward.
Dean, have you or Ian? Stop now. Have one of you got like a
drilling
line in the background?
I think someone's just started a bit of bank holiday DIY next door. Yeah. Can you hear it?
Yeah. Where was that coming from? Is that you, Dean?
No, it's not mine. No.
It's Ian. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, drilling's fine. I thought it was one of those. You know, like there's little remote control aeroplanes.
He's just flying it around the lounge while I'm talking. It's so boring.
Mark says that's a large mosquito. Oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's definitely lower. All good. Yeah, Dean, good points there. Spurs defence. I mean, I foolishly went double Spurs defence on wildcard, and now I'm blocked from Richarlison.
And this is the thing, yeah, like that defence just is untrustworthy. I mean, maybe they've prioritised fixing it to show some hope for next season, but I doubt it can be fixed in 2 games.
I mean, Ian, you were sat behind Ange yesterday. You're seeing his reaction, and he's been more animated in the last few game weeks for obvious reason. Like against Chelsea, I really enjoyed the sort of touchline cam on Ange. Can they keep a clean sheet versus Burnley? Like, is that like at home to Burnley? I'm fancy Vincent Kompany's team to probably grab a goal. Like, I'm thinking it might be worth a hit for me to get a Porro or a Vicario out so I can get a Richarlison, because these defensive assets at Spurs over a double game week, I don't think they're picking up more than 3 points, let alone 4. Like, they're getting minus points every week. And they've got Man City, obviously, where I expect them to probably end on 1 or 0. And then Burnley, they might net 2 or 3, you know.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't keep another clean sheet this season. And that's despite having Burnley and Sheffield United in 2 of the 3 remaining games. The thing is, this is an historical thing for them now across this season. It's not like it's just something that's happened over the last couple of weeks. They've kept something like 1 clean sheet in the last 18 Premier League matches. So it's not a surprise to see them struggling. The nature of the goals yesterday as well. I mean, Vicario, you'd expect him to be stronger on the Salah one. I mean, Emerson giving the ball away for Gakpo's goal. They were self-inflicted, some of the goals, and you're not stopping Harvey Elliott's strike either, are you, to be fair? I mean, maybe you can stop the build-up to it, but this is the thing. And Emerson looked like he was struggling, to be honest. I mean, he struggled that much that they've thought that bringing Oliver Skip on as a sort of makeshift left back against Mohamed Salah was a good idea, which showed you maybe how desperate Ange Postecoglou was to try and sort out that situation. For what it's worth, post-game, he wasn't that upset with the way that they played. He thought that was better than the performance in the recent matches, certainly better than the Chelsea game. So as far as he's concerned, he felt like Liverpool was at least a little bit of a step forward compared to what's gone before. But I trust him in attack. I wouldn't trust him in defence.
Yeah. I just on Tottenham as well. I mean, I don't know if there is another team that is as out of form across every area of the pitch as Tottenham have been. And that's another reason to back Richarlison, because he genuinely might be the only one who's actually got anything properly about him at the moment.
He looked sharp. He looked really sharp. The other thing to add, though, it is at Anfield, where he gets booed every time he even blinks for his links with Everton. And even his behaviour yesterday, trying to force Harvey Elliott off the pitch quicker when it was 4-2 or something like that, got the reaction that you'd expect from the home faithful. He has a good record, actually, at Anfield as well. I think that was the 4th time he scored against Liverpool on that ground. So he seems to save his best for there. But I definitely think he's an option because he's cheap. I think it's going to be like a little bit of chess in it, especially people who've just played wild cards and budgets tight. So I think he could be handy for us, definitely.
It's tough that in a way it'd be easier if he was listed as a forward. Midfield spots are difficult. There's so many good options in midfield, but I still want to think. I think I want to punt there. I was surprised to see him benched. I don't think we'll see him benched again. He looks. I know, Ian, you mentioned like Anfield, you get that extra 10% out of him. I wonder if just because it's now the season running. He's been training off the back of this injury to be fit for the end of the season. I think he's going to go hell for leather in the next few games too. And I think back to his first appearance back at the Emirates a couple of weeks ago, shoulder barging Gabriel within minutes. And then I think he did like an Insta post match about like Brazil's leading number 9 versus the guy that can't even get in the squad type post. Like he is riled, and the housery is up there for him. And I just think there's goals against the newly promoted teams. Burnley and Sheffield United are those high ceiling fixtures, and there's very few FPL assets we can punt on that are a differential that offer that level of ceiling. So for me, if it even means taking a hit to sell a Spurs defender so you can go Richarlison in, maybe it's worth it. But I guess the question is, who do you replace? So Dean, given the choice, you could go Son to Richarlison. That seems too sideways and maybe risky. Son still has pens and the 90-minute guarantee.
Yeah, definitely.
The other one is Bruno. And I don't know where Bruno's even going to play tonight. So, Dean, I'll come to you first.
Plays,
Ian. So, is he fit? But Bruno could be quite deep with the absence of all the centre-backs. And I just wonder what ceiling he offers in game week 37, knowing he's got Newcastle at home and Arsenal at home. 2 tough fixtures.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem that tempting, especially if he has got this injury. It's not one you're going to be jumping at. If you've already got him, then you're tempted to play him, but it's certainly not one you're going to be looking to get into your team, I don't think, at this stage. So for me, that would be out the window, really. Son, I'm going to keep because, like you say, he still always crops up. He is still like the most dangerous creator around whoever's playing centre forward if it's not him. And as the penalty aspect too, that I just can't take away, especially playing against those 2 teams. They're clumsy, and the chances of a penalty are pretty high. So, yeah, I'll be sticking with Son. Richarlison, I mean, the only way I could take out Garnacho. Yeah, I don't know. I've definitely got options to be able to get Richarlison in there as a midfielder.
The good thing about Son to Richarlison is it gives you money, and you might need that in 38 if you're going on a Salah 1-week punt.
That's my thoughts, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, a lot of people will be looking at that. Before we move on from that game, let's just mention Darwin Nunez for a minute. He's only 15% owned right now. Most people are giving up on him, but it looks like he's given up on Liverpool too. He's removed every single picture on his Instagram that had him in a Liverpool kit this morning. It's gone, everything. I assume he's just archived it rather than deleted it all, because that would be a bit really brash. But that is pretty major. Something's going on here with Nunez, because so he's been getting stick for a few weeks now, missed chances, whatever. But online, there's been quite a lot of hate towards him. There was also that really weird thing. There was an article that both Paul Joyce and Chris Bascom did about a week, 10 days ago, where both of them wrote a piece out of the blue talking about how he was a Klopp signing, not a club signing. It seemed very unnecessary. But out of nowhere, they suddenly were like, oh, the club actually wanted to sign Nkunku, but Klopp was adamant that Nunez was the one to go for. And then both articles listed like all the downsides, basically, of what Darwin Nunez has done. And every now and then would say, oh, but he's also brought in this and that. But it seemed like a piece that was like, I read it, but obviously it's a transfer journalist being like, this is angling towards the beginning of a possible transfer. Then he's linked with Barcelona a few times, actually, in the last few days as a potential Lewandowski replacement. I mean, that's just absolutely ludicrous. But whatever reason, Barcelona might be interested in Darwin Nunez. The rumour is out there. And now he's taking all these photos down of him in a Liverpool kit. I mean, this seems pretty serious.
I mean, the one thing about this, when I was at Anfield yesterday, there was absolutely no sign of any hate or anything even remotely like that towards him. And when he came on, you know, he got his usual ovation. He did a couple of things where he got the fans shouting Nunez. I know he misses chances. I know he's been frustrating to watch and own in FPL at times this season, but he's always been, from my perspective, being at the matches, a hugely popular figure with the home crowd, because he gives it his absolute all. And even if he's not finishing off every single chance, he's leaving everything out on the field, and that is a quality that crowd will respond to. Obviously, this is quite a big step, isn't it? It sends a message, but you know, like you said, maybe it's an online fan thing as opposed to a Liverpool fan thing generally. You know,
yeah. I said to you offline before we came on, like Wijnaldum had a similar thing to this. He spoke about it, I think not until after he left, but he said, at Liverpool, there was 2 sets of fans basically that would follow me, and the fans at matches were 100% behind me at all times. I didn't get any stick. But then on social media, I would be blamed for everything. Liverpool fans online would just always look to me and make me the victim of whatever had gone wrong. This is the world of social media. It's not just Liverpool fans that do this, obviously, but it's difficult when you're at a club as big as Liverpool because there are so many fans. And I've said it before, like if I was a footballer, there's absolutely no way I'll be checking my mentions after a football match. Maybe if I was Messi, I think I could probably handle it if I was Messi. But if I was a player like Darwin Nunez or Nicholas Jackson, the last thing I'll be doing if I need confidence is checking my online mentions week by week. So yeah, it's just a weird one. I just thought we should probably flag it because we might have seen the last of Darwin.
I wanted to punt Darwin in game week 38, so I was disappointed not to see him in the 11 yesterday. I needed Darwin start. I need Darwin starts in 37, 36. Yeah, maybe Gakpo was leading the line.
Wasn't it, from Gakpo? Yeah,
good head. Yeah. I love that header as well. That's just a header Darwin misses. Liverpool and Arsenal are both going to be highly in demand in game week 38. Nice final day fixtures at home. Hello, everyone in the chat this morning. Off court, Luke, Kev's with us, Jason, FPL Marshall, Adam. Thank you, guys. Freddie, CH, who didn't buy Declan Rice in the end. Gutted for you, CH, on your birthday last Friday.
CH, how many points did you get? We're in that competition, aren't we, me and you?
Let us know.
Let us know how you got on this week.
What time is it in Canada right now, CH? You are up early. Love that. Committed on a Monday morning. Thank you, CH, for being with us. Hit the like button, team. 6 a.m, she says. Let's go to the other big game. Well, there's a few games we need to touch on. I mean, we'll get to Chelsea in a minute. But let's do Man City first.
Did a big team first. Yeah, did a big team first.
Ian was there to see Haaland's 4 goals.
Yes.
We all 3 of us captain Haaland, right?
Yeah.
Let us know in the chat if you didn't captain Haaland, so we.
The thing is, though, it doesn't feel like your captain getting 4 goals has made as much difference as it should have done, really.
His effective ownership at my rank was like 170 odd %. So like it was just huge.
It feels like
many
people
who
didn't captain him, they had like a Saka or someone like that who
Palmer
made up the difference, or an extra Arsenal defender, Palmer's well owned, isn't he? But there's a few players who are maybe, I don't know, hovering probably just below 50% owned, and it just sort of made up for it, really. They'd have had a brilliant week if they had captained Haaland, but compared to someone like myself who benched Nicholas Jackson, didn't really give the the lift off that it should do, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, the Nicholas Jackson one, I guess if you've got him, you just got to play him because you don't really know what you're getting from the guy.
Yeah, you could say that, Dean.
I guess that's probably the big takeaway from the season. I mean, he's got 13 goals now in the Premier League.
More open play goals than Mo Salah. More open play goals than Cole Palmer. We compare the likes of Højlund and Darwin, and when they score, we go, "Oh, look, haven't they played well?" Nicholas Jackson is performing considerably higher than those 2 forwards who do not get the same level of stick. Nicholas Jackson's a decent asset in FPL. He's cheap. He's playing in a team scoring loads of goals. He faced a West Ham team who are conceding chances aplenty. Ian, what were you thinking?
Well, we'll see our teams in a moment. What I was thinking was I hadn't got a clue who to bench. That's the problem.
Do you have Son and Bruno as well?
Yeah,
it was one of those 3.
No, I don't have Bruno, but it was between Son and Jackson. Yeah, who to bench? That was my dilemma. And having watched Liverpool a lot lately, I thought they'd concede. They did. Son scored, but he just obviously didn't score as well as Jackson. And I already had Cole Palmer as well. So if you're doubling up on the Chelsea attack and not covering the Spurs attack, I don't know. Yeah, it's an error, but I can understand why I made that choice. I'd only just brought Jackson in as well because I tried to go different on my wild card by owning Rasmus Højlund instead.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get when we get to my team. I'll explain. I've had a bit of a mare the last couple of weeks, but yeah,
I need to keep a closer eye on your team, mate. I didn't realize you were going quite so rogue with Højlund style moves. I like that for the end of the season, but it didn't pay off. But Neil Robertson's in the chat. Good morning, Neil. It says, morning, guys. The climb continues. Neil, I reckon since you've been doing punditry work in Sheffield, you've taken your eye a little bit off FPL, and I think that's helping you. I like that very much. This rank gain is impressive. 700k and it was only that was under a month ago, I reckon. 420,
Incredible,
250, 180. Neil is an early adopter of Nicholas Jackson, a big Chelsea fan. He really went Jackson when he wildcarded about 10 weeks ago, and it didn't pay off straight away. But seeing as Neil's with us in the chat at the moment, let's keep our attention on Jackson and just talk a little bit about him as a footballer and a striker, because I think he is criminally underappreciated. I think, yes, his finishing needs work. His movement off the ball is brilliant. His pace, he outpaced Carl Walker in the FA Cup semi-final when he had the ball. He's got, as Dean says, the longest stride in football. I think he's a really good player. I think he's more intelligent than we give him credit for. I think his hold-up play is better than we think. And yes, he needs a bit of work on his finishing, but I can say that for a lot of forwards. He's scoring goals for fun.
It's composure, though, isn't it? And I don't know how you.
I
don't know how. Yeah, I don't know if he's got that in it. I mean, he's been a footballer for, he's been in La Liga, he's been in the Premier League. It's not like nobody would ever have noticed this before and tried to work on him, just taking his time a little bit more, not being so rash. Or, if we're spotting it, and I'm pretty sure that the coaches he's worked with have spotted it. And most weeks he looks better when he's out wide. And
he does like going left.
Chelsea are buying a number 9. Like there's no getting around it. Like they love Aussie men. They might go for Ivan Toney if they can't get Aussie men. They're looking at people like Benjamin Sisko, Openda at RB Leipzig. They're looking at loads of different players. But there's so many number 9s on their radar that it seems impossible to me that they're not going to sign one. And I just assume that Nicholas Jackson's going to end up wide. And I think that that's the best thing for him. I think that there'll be less pressure on him.
More space.
Still get into good space. Yeah, I just think that it's the best thing. I mean, rightly or wrongly, he's getting compared to Drogba a little bit at the moment. And I think, his head, that header he scored the other day was a bit Drogba. The celebration was very Drogba. I think in comparison to Drogba's first season, he's got more goals now than Drogba got in his first year. I read somewhere. I don't like this comparison. Right?
No, nor do I, and I like the player.
But it doesn't mean he's not a decent asset. And look, the more we see of Chelsea at the moment, the more you do think, just stick with Poch. Like, what's the point of... There's not a guaranteed candidate you could bring in right now. And if you look across football at the moment, all of the managers that have been linked with leaving their jobs and actually just ended up staying... Like, it's most of them. Like, you had Xavi Alonso, you had Xavi at Barcelona, you had Ruben Amorim at Sporting Lisbon. They're all staying in their jobs. And I've got a feeling that after all the talk, and I was pretty convinced that at the end of the season, Poch was going to go. I think after the last couple of weeks, there's got to be an argument now. They're like, why? Why change it? Like, they actually... The build-up players, but I think it was the first goal yesterday where they played from the back and they were patient.
Oh, it's amazing. Thiago Silva started that. And
Thiago Silva started and he's not going to be there. And clearly that's part of it too. They've got to start getting a couple of experienced heads in. They're going to axe the under 25 rule or whatever it is to transfers. But there's definite signs here of growth. And the fact they can actually still reach Europe this season just tells you like how weak the elite actually is right now. And it's easy to get back in there.
Yeah, no, I get that. Jackson in for you, like comparing similar age to a Højlund and a Darwin, like ish. Darwin cost 3 times as much as Jackson. Højlund was more expensive. Who got the best deal out of those 3?
Personally, and this is probably as much as my bias as your bias, Gianni, but I still think Rasmus Højlund of the 3 is the best. He just doesn't get the service that those other 2 get. Although earlier on in the season, when they were all racking up chances, his XG underperformance was actually similar, in fairness, to Darwin and to Nicholas Jackson. I just feel like Højlund's ceiling his potential is higher than the other 2. As far as Jackson's concerned, I agree with you, Gianni. I think he's a really good player. I think the issue is the composure. But if he gets lots of chances, then that's fine, isn't it? It doesn't matter as much if you are getting enough. And if Chelsea are winning and he's doing what he needs to do for the team, similar to Darwin this season. Someone said in the chat before, if he's working his socks off, not scoring, but Liverpool are winning, of course people are going to like him. It's not a problem in that sort of context if you're missing chances. But I'm glad I own him now. It was an error to go Højlund and not Jackson on my wild card, and I just changed it straight away and took a -4 last week, but then benched him. But like I say, it's been a bit of a mare the last couple of weeks. So yeah.
We'll do a poll forget FPL for a sec. Who is your favourite out the three? If you were managing a team in the Premier League and you could have any of the three in your team, who would it be? Mine would actually be Darwin, but then I'd have Jackson and Højlund at 3. But that'll be an interesting vote. That I can see comments in the chat for all 3 already. So we'll do a poll. Let's move across to, I think we got to touch on Arsenal. And then look, we're going to see teams. We're going to look at all the bench boost teams coming up as well. So all the teams doubling in 37, which bench boost is, of course, being activated by many next week. We'll look at the teams doubling and give some suggestions as best players for those. I think it's 6 teams doubling. We'll go through them one by one. But let's just touch on Arsenal because, again, impressive victory. Dean, loads of us that wildcarded a couple of weeks ago. I sold Saka and Havertz on wildcard. Like, these guys are producing points. And in game week 38, final day of the season, sure, they might not win the title, but against Everton at the Emirates, when the pressure's, I guess, off, let's see if it is, they're going to go and score 4 or 5 goals. And punts in 38 for a Havertz, an Odegaard, a Saka, they're going to be really
hard
popular.
to know whether, but this is the thing, isn't it? With Arsenal, it's also shared around. You don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Like Trossard, even, like he's good to pick as any of them. Because of his influence. And I can tell you what, from the start of next season, I'm getting on Declan Rice. I'm like, I'm so convinced. This season, he's got 7 goals, 10 assists, right? And he's been locked for most of the season.
DM, half of it.
Yeah, most of the time being locked at DM. I think it's better when he's got like a Partey alongside him. It gives him that freedom a bit more. As you know, I've got a friend of mine who's coached him, and he's been saying to me, "Look, just wait until they let him free." He's like, he is the best striker of a ball I've ever worked with. And now that Arsenal are prioritising the DM that's going to be signed alongside him, say it's a Zubimendi who does sit there, does allow Dec to go and become the Yaya Toure type player that he genuinely wants to become, those numbers are going to double.
And he's on set pieces now as well.
He's going to be on set pieces too.
Yeah.
Like, if at the moment he's a £5.5 million asset, and obviously it's flaky as to when the points are going to come, and so he's been a hard one to jump on. But if you're looking at next season, say even if he's 6 million, I think I'm just going to have him, and I'm going to just trust the process of the growth of this guy. Like,
what if
David
he's 7 million?
Yeah, like David Moyes. Yes, it was asked like, what's the why is the big drop off this season? He's like, Declan Rice, like irreplaceable. Best in the world at what he does.
James Ward-Prowse isn't quite the same.
Yeah, just best in the world at what he does. And Arsenal's improvements from last year, Declan Rice started every single game. To go in there as £100 million signing and actually exceed expectations, pretty hard thing to do. But I think that he's done it. So yeah, I think for next season, Rice. But for this season, I've still got Saka, so I'm all right in that sense. I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, Trossard, because he's 6.5 million, I do think he's quite a nice pick because he's getting enough minutes and enough opportunities in front of goal that I think he probably is a good pick.
Ian, what do you make of Havertz? I mean, Nicholas Jackson has more open play goals than Havertz this season, and Havertz is being lauded at the moment. Rightly so. I think his performances have been great. FPL pick or for the run-in because the form's so good?
Yeah, I think if I was going anywhere in Arsenal's midfield right now, it would be to Kai Havertz when he's playing in that that striker position. I think he's been an excellent FPL asset, and he's been a very good player for Arsenal as well. Saka is still there, isn't he? Still getting his questionable penalties, as that one was at the weekend, to be fair. But Kai Havertz was involved as anyone, of course, in that. It's difficult, isn't it? We said before, that there are so many options in midfield right now that it's very difficult to have them all. But, an Arsenal side still going for the title against an Everton team who are already safe on the final day feels like there could be holes in it for the Arsenal attack. So at the moment, I only own Ben White from Arsenal after playing my wild card in 35. And that feels like a bit of an error as well in a way. One that was probably quite predictable as well, considering Arsenal's form. So, it's going to be sort of a way up for me, I think, heading into the final day, whether you go towards Salah or whether you go towards an Arsenal midfielder, I think.
Those that had double Arsenal defence and kept them on wildcard, fair play, you got your clean sheet against Bournemouth. I do think you got a bit lucky. I think there was definitely a penalty and the disallowed goal in there. But you now go into game week 37 and many managers that are bench boosting, the ones that are wildcard in 35, the only players they have on single game weeks will be, for many, an Arsenal defender or two or a Saka. Ian, what do you make of that fixture at Old Trafford? Because historically, you expect United to score at Old Trafford against Arsenal. Going in with 2 Arsenal defenders on bench boost with a single game week against Man United is far from optimal, that one, for that week alone.
Yeah, for that week alone, it's not optimal, I wouldn't have said. Although, would you bet against Arsenal keeping a clean sheet with the way that their defensive record has been in the second half of this season and at times how dysfunctional United have been? The one thing I will say is that they have raised the game at times this year when it's been against, better teams, so to speak. I think United's approach can work a bit better when they're counter-attacking against sides and not playing against low blocks. But they're just decimated at the back by injuries again. I mean, Harry Maguire is going to be missing, I think, for the rest of the Premier League season now. And as far as I'm aware, at this current stage, it's probably likely to be something like Johnny Evans and Casemiro at centre-back tonight, unless there's any late news on people returning to training over the weekend. Erik ten Hag had his press conference quite early. It was on Thursday. He did confirm that Johnny Evans was back in training, so we can expect that he's going to be available for this game. Casemiro's played there, obviously, the last few weeks. I don't know if anyone else is back in that centre-back position. So, yeah, it's going to be a really tough ask that for United against Palace, but against Arsenal next week, when hopefully there might be a little bit more back, but it's not much of a platform to build on. That's a very makeshift back line.
Yeah. Some will be listening to this after Monday night, but let's just get a prediction on tonight's game, because most will be watching before Man United Palace. Dean, is it fair to say Palace are favourites tonight?
Oh, I don't know about favourites, but
do you reckon the bookies have them? I reckon the bookies have them as favourites. Just
really? I'd be surprised if they did.
I can't see that they would be that.
Let's have a look.
I would still expect United to be favourites. But yeah, you might be right. I can't, my phone's rubbish. It's not loading.
I'm on it. I'm on Paddy. Right,
but it's not going to be much between it. And to be honest, what do I actually expect from this game? 1-1 is probably what I expect from this game. I'll watch it. Am I super excited about watching it? No.
I know what you mean, Dean. Go on, man.
But Mateta's playing, so I've got him up front. So a Mateta goal, and I'll take it. But yeah, look, Palace are obviously a weird team at the moment because they're a bit in flux. They're not going to keep all these good players that they've got, but they have got them at the moment, and they are playing exciting. That Elise, Eze, Mateta, trio is linking up really well, and the players around them definitely finding good combinations compared to where they were at. So, yeah, I thought Palace are favourites, are they? That's pretty mad.
Mate, mad. They're averaging over 2 goals a game at the moment, Palace. Under Glasner, with this sort of 3-4-3 shape, Eze, Elise fit, Mateta, that front three.
Yeah, but it's a 4-game run of form.
Yeah, but but United's form is so bad as well.
No, I'm not saying I don't trust Man United. Obviously, they're taking them out of the equation here. But Crystal Palace have had 4 good game weeks. I'm not sure how deeply I trust it.
And that 2-game average thing I worked out was, I think, over the last 5. It's not like they're scoring 2+
Palace playing like Barcelona now, says Gav. Yeah.
So, Gianni, did you just say that they'd scored an average of 2 goals a game under Glasner?
I didn't actually say under Glasner in that same sentence. I said that averaging 2+ goals a game at the moment. And when I wrote an article for Give Me Sport last week, and I touched on it, and I think I worked it out. The best ratio was either over the last 5 or the last 6 to get the highest average. Yeah, it was
5 against West Ham in between. Yeah,
yeah. I like that. And look, the United defense is the defense to target at the moment. There's, I think, for XGC recently, United rank around 15th. I think in the last 6 game weeks.
Yeah, there's been a lot about this, hasn't there, because of the number of shots they concede. A lot of the shots are extremely low XG, which, if Erik ten Hag was sat here now on this stream, it'd be entertaining for a start. But if he was, he'd probably be saying the same thing, that, a lot of the chances that they concede and a lot of the shots are of a very, very low quality. Yeah. But the issue is for United, obviously, if you concede that quantity of shots, it almost doesn't matter on the quality because they add up eventually to being a problem, and they have been a problem in recent weeks. So I certainly don't feel upset that I'm going to have to get rid of a Manchester United defender, with Harry Maguire. Definitely not.
No. The other thing with United, they're not a pretty watch or anything, but they've only lost 2 games in the last 2 months, and that was
somehow
Man City, the 3-1, which you expect to happen anyway, and obviously the Chelsea 4-3 when Cole Palmer scores in the 200th minute. So it's
Yeah.
You know, so you look at it like that, and you're like, that's why to me it's a draw written all over it. But
I feel like it could be a draw as well, to be fair.
And I don't know what we've. There's obviously stuff that's about Jason Wilcox is analysing Ten Hag and all. I know probably more likely to stay. I'm not sure what he's really learned. What could he have possibly learned in the last couple of weeks that we didn't already know before now? Ian, what do you?
The thing is, he's analysing everything. You know, the whole structure, everything's being analysed. You've seen some of the stories that have come out in recent weeks about even the state of like offices being analysed. There is literally like a root and branch review of every aspect, it feels like, of the way Manchester United function as a team and as a business as well. So, you know, to bring in a technical director and not assess the manager would be extremely odd. And Ten Hag's spoken openly about it. They're getting to know each other. He says they have to build up a very intense relationship very quickly. So I wouldn't expect him to do anything else. You know, United are kicking off tonight in 8th position, aren't they? So, you know, this is not where they would expect to be in any way, shape, or form. This is way, way below what the expectation was even for this season. You know, even at the halfway stage of this season, there is a very real prospect that they could have their lowest ever Premier League finish, which would be reflective of a very poor season. So, you know, of course, everyone's being assessed. That's exactly what should be happening at this sort of stage of a season that's been this poor and this below expectation, because the way that Chelsea are playing, even the way that Newcastle have been in the last few weeks, would you bet against them finishing above United? I mean, United-Newcastle in that midweek, the final week of the season, is going to be a huge match and could have a decisive say in who finishes higher between the teams, and that could end up deciding whether you're in Europe or not.
Yeah, but do you think the decision on Ten Hag will be as knee-jerk as like judging him on these results and on the cup final, or do you think they've already decided what they'll be doing?
Yeah, well, every noise that I've heard or everything that I've been told suggests that they are backing him and they are sticking with him. Despite the situation, they believe that he deserves an opportunity to work within a more coherent, in their terms, footballing structure. They think that the injuries that United have had in centre back and left back this season have been, you know, clear mitigation for why the performances have been so below what's expected. That said, you know, if United were to finish 8th, you know, not getting to Europe, losing the cup final, it would certainly test that theory. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems like the biggest victory for Man United, just to annoy Man United fans a little bit more, because I'm just making the most of this moment of Chelsea actually winning games for once.
You just hate Man United.
Yeah, and seeing as there's some such pro Man United fans in the chat and here alongside me, seems like the biggest win for Man United recently has been the Ipswich promotion. Congratulations, because McKenna seems to be the biggest, obviously, like fan thing going on at Man United right now. He is a manager in the making, right? That is something that's
Man United decided otherwise already, and that's why I let him go, isn't it?
I mean, what do we make of that? Like, it's like, just talk briefly about Ipswich and McKenna coming into the Premier League, because the football's been brilliant, and a bit like Burnley, I wonder if they'll come up and be like same way, same core team, not spend a load of money. But do we feel like that's a future Man United manager in the making? Ian, I'll come to you first.
It could be. He was extremely highly rated when he was a coach at United. He got a lot of stick around the sort of time that there was a vortex around anyone associated with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, considering the way that the results had been going, and him and Michael Carrick sort of got a lot of the criticism at times. But you speak to anyone around the club, both of them were extremely highly rated. McKenna was brought in originally by Mourinho, and Solskjaer kept him on, and McKenna and Carrick in many ways were the brains behind some of the coaching work that was being done at that time. So I don't think United will be hugely surprised at how he's done as a manager. I mean, he's done incredibly well these first 2 years, so maybe they thought he'd do well, but perhaps not this well, this quick. But in terms of him being a United manager, I mean, he'd have to go and work somewhere in between, I would think, at a higher level. You know, they'd want someone who has got a history of winning things, of played in Europe, of managing, you know, very high profile players. So there'd be a little way to go, but he's been hugely impressive. But I'm not sure there'd be many United fans taking credit for this Gianni, to be honest.
I've just thought the fan reaction to Ipswich going up, the amount of United fans just completely going like lauding him on social. It's like, okay, well,
Right.
I guess you don't have a huge amount to cheer about at your own club yet, so you can become Ipswich fans.
There's a few people in the chat.
These back-to-back Chelsea wins are really
believe, wasn't it? There's a few people saying Jadon Sancho in the chat as well.
Fair.
Taking credit for him reaching the very last stages of the Champions League as well, but that's maybe a bit of a stretch too at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the last stages of the champs, and fair play to the German teams. We got 15 minutes left. I want to go through the teams doubling, and obviously we want to see our team. So let's just run through the teams that do have a double game week. We've spoken about some already. I don't think we need to actually speak about Chelsea and Spurs in more detail. Chelsea have Forest away, Brighton away. Just worth noting there, yes, they're keeping clean sheets, but West Ham hit the bar 3 times yesterday. Chelsea were fortunate to keep a clean sheet, I think, against
Jared
Spurs
Bowen hit the bar 3 times,
yeah,
didn't he? I'm single-handedly trying to bring a little bit of respectability.
Yeah, honestly. But Chelsea attack, Jackson, Shaw, Palmer, we know. Madueke is also worth consideration. He's been playing really well of late. Spurs, we discussed. Richarlison in if you can. Man City have Fulham and Tottenham away. If we're going for captaincy, is it now, because Haaland's gone and got his 4, does it make that decision easier? Or Dean, go into Craven Cottage. Not many teams go and score big there. Going to Spurs, however, is a nice fixture for Man City. Do you look at that and go, I'll be going Haaland captain? Because you don't tend to back against Fulham with the armband, but this week you might.
Yeah, Haaland's definitely going to be my captain. I'm not stupid. Look, we're on the beach. Like, we got nothing to play for. Our last 2 performances have been pretty lackluster. 0-0 against Brentford, or 1-1 against Crystal Palace. There are no signs that Fulham are in a sort of rhythm that means they can come up with a big performance that beats Man City. Now, look, they've been surprised me on occasions throughout this season when they have been able to come up with big wins, but now that Tosin isn't playing, Tosin Adebayo is not going to be playing for the rest of the season after telling Fulham he won't sign a contract. So that means Issa Diop will be in there alongside Calvin Bassey. Calvin Bassey's a good player. Issa Diop, less so. I don't fancy our chances at all, mate. I mean,
Dean, do you remember what happened the last time that Fulham played Manchester City in the Premier League?
What, home or away?
At the Etihad.
The Etihad earlier on this season, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that just gives you even more belief, I think, that Haaland should be the captain, right? 5-1 win, Haaland hat-trick.
He got a hat-trick, didn't he, against us? Yeah. It's not the first time, and this is it. I've said to people throughout the season, because we were obviously playing Liverpool as well. We played Arsenal already. We beat Arsenal at home. Unbelievable performance, but that didn't surprise me. I also half expected us to get something out of the Liverpool game. We just didn't turn up, and that was a few weeks ago. Terrible performance. I've said all along, we will not get anything against Man City. The way that they play, we just can't cope with that style of football. We can be a decent team on our day, no doubt about it, but we're just not in that place right now. Like, you know, I was talking earlier about potentially getting rid of De Bruyne. Probably not going to. I watch our team. I know the flaws that are there. And Palhinha too. He's not playing terribly at the moment, but he's not at his top level at the moment, which is probably good because I don't want to get transferred somewhere else. But look, I'm not optimistic. It's actually one of my little boys' birthday at the weekend. His birthday's actually Sunday, but we're doing some stuff Saturday. And I'm like, do I go to the Fulham Man City or just give him the day? I really don't think that I can go to the game. I've got that little faith in getting anything out of that. I think I'm just going to enjoy the day.
Fair enough. Michael says, and I'm going to ask Ian, KDB versus Foden, if they're the same price. If they're the same price, I think for me it's KDB, but they're not the same price. And at the weekend, Man City just went and scored big, and not a single return for De Bruyne. Only the one for Foden. But where'd you go there, Ian?
Do you know, if I'm completely honest, I thought Kevin De Bruyne was really poor in the game at the weekend. He didn't look anything like the player that he is.
He's had a few of these, though, hasn't he?
It was funny. It was like, unlike him, like heavy touches, passes going astray, shots going astray, didn't have as much influence over the game as you'd expect. I mean, speaking to the City players afterwards, Nathan Ake in particular, full of praise for the way that Wolves played, which in a 5-1 win you don't often get, really, to be honest. Said they made it really, really difficult for them. And it was 2 penalties, a fantastic header from Haaland and a ridiculous finish from him as well. And that was enough to take the game away from them. I jumped on De Bruyne for this week. He was part of a -4, which I brought Jackson in as well. It was really annoying. So the plan was on wildcard to have Bruno Fernandes and then 1 week later move on to De Bruyne. And I didn't pay attention properly to the price rises. And on that Sunday night after the Nottingham Forest game, he jumped up 0.1 and it priced me out of the move. So then I had to take the -4 to empty 0.1 out of Højlund to get Jackson. And I didn't really want Jackson. And obviously, it's gone the way it's gone. But then watching City at the weekend, even though he got the 2 assists against Forest and he got player of the match as well, which I was surprised at, De Bruyne in that game. I own him now. I'm definitely not going to sell him, but I'm not sure he's at his peak right now.
He'll get a new contract because there's talk that he's going to get a new contract, isn't there? And
there's been lots of talk both ways about him. I mean, he'd leave an incredible hole at City, if he was to leave in terms of the quality of him, but also
it's the first time you've really been able to imagine it actually might happen, isn't it? Really.
Mainly because of the way that Foden's played when he's been through the middle. David Silva was at the game actually at the weekend.
Yeah, with his little boy who had exactly the same haircut.
Sorry, Matteo. Yeah, he's 6 years old. We did loads of stories with David at the time because Matteo was born extremely prematurely.
Cool. So I remember
and was very, very ill to start his life. And David was quite open about it and spoke about the problems that he was having and getting through it to try and help other people. And it was fantastic to see him there with his lad. But the point I was trying to make was that Foden was supposed to be David Silva's replacement. Yeah. And it's not really worked out like that because obviously he's been used wide a lot more than through the middle like Silva used to play. But perhaps he'll prove Kevin De Bruyne's replacement because he's certainly maturing. Pep's so much more positive about him playing through the middle. Just not that positive about playing him through the middle with KDB. It seems to have
Which
to
he does with Alvarez. Alvarez and KDB at the start of the season played that role together a ton. We've just not seen it. We saw it. Foden and De Bruyne did it against Chelsea in the FA Cup semi. It's the first time I've seen them both playing that role together for ages.
Doesn't do it. And often when they start together, it's Foden who starts wide and drifts inside a little bit more. That didn't happen against Wolves, but the Brighton game, for example, he was almost alongside De Bruyne, even though he'd started on the wing. So, yeah, I mean, I'm tripled up on City attack. I don't see myself jumping off that, but I'm not totally sure if I would have jumped on KDB having watched that Wolves game in the way that I did. But maybe that's just me being regretful over that move at the moment, and he could go and absolutely smash it in Gameweek 37, and you don't look back.
If you can get to both Foden and De Bruyne, maybe that's the play. And Haaland triple City attack. City do tend to concede a goal when the game is won. At the end of last season, we saw it a ton. Loads went and bought Ederson, and they were winning games 4. They were 3-0 up, and then they can go and see the stoppy goal. They win 4-1.
They always do, don't they? They always do.
The same at the weekend. Like Wolves never should have scored. And I'm an Ederson owner, and I'm like, the ceiling is low for the City defenders anyway. I know Gvardiol's been popping up with attacking returns, but I don't think that will continue.
He looked extremely attacking though against Wolves.
Yeah,
extremely attacking again.
He is so high and wide. Like you just don't expect it from someone that's naturally a centre back. Yeah. So I guess he's the standout. Other teams double in. United, we've spoken about. Newcastle, I think everyone knows what you get with Isak and Gordon. There's very little outside in terms of Newcastle attack. Maybe a Callum Wilson punt, knowing Isak and Wilson could be starting together. They started together at the weekend. And then Newcastle defence, I think for clean sheets, Dan Burn, cheap. The likes of Haaland, Livramento playing well too. The only other team I guess to touch on is Brighton. I wonder with the Maguire injury, for those that have got, say, triple Chelsea and triple Tottenham and triple Newcastle and Man United already, or that only leaves Brighton. Yeah, or no budget. So maybe Aston Villa only clocked an XG, I think, of 0.7 in the entire 0.07 in the entire game. Could Brighton keep a clean sheet away to Newcastle at home to Chelsea? Unlikely, but maybe a Lewis Dunk attacking return is possible, and that you've got a glimmer of hope for a clean sheet.
Can I make a shout that I didn't think I'd ever make? Adam Webster.
Yeah,
Adam
okay.
Webster.
I mean, with Van Heck out, he's nailed. He's cheap.
So he's 4.2 million, which is exactly the same price as Harry Maguire. So for anyone like myself who's got no budget and needs to sort out Maguire because I'm on bench boost, he's a direct replacement, an easy direct replacement. The only issue is he's barely played in the second half of this season, mainly because Van Heck has been as good as he's been, and De Zerbi said after the game as well that key reason why Webster hasn't had more minutes was because of how good Van Heck's been. But he did play. He was full of praise for him. I think he got 8 points from that Villa game because he's historically been pretty good on bonus. And like Dunk, is a decent set piece threat as well. Maybe not quite the level of Dunk, in fairness, but somehow, some way, I think I might be owning Adam Webster this week.
Amazing.
Which, did not see that one coming.
Should we just look at Ian's team? We've only got 5 minutes left. We see our teams all the time. So let's do
nice.
Ian's team and then we can
give me a bit more Jackson banter, I imagine. Yeah.
That's all right. We'll free you from that. You've already gone through the meal. So let's see if we can get Ian's team up. What was your general feeling about your game week, mate? What points did you get?
Let's have a look. So it was okay. Just sort of treading water a little bit around the 200,000 mark. I'm as high as I've been in this season because it's not been a great season for me, as I've talked about when I've been on the stream previously. And I sort of fought my way back to about 300,000 and then I've barely moved since in the last sort of 15 game weeks. I'm trying my best to avoid my worst rank since I've been playing the game seriously. Oh, wow. Which was a couple of years ago when I was 186,000 in Gameweek 38.
Not that bad, to be fair.
So I'm about 20,000 places off that at the moment. So that's my target in these remaining weeks anyway. But it was fine. I mean, I had Haaland captain, like I mentioned before. Jordan Pickford over Petrovic was an error in the end. That cost me 3 points, but I felt more comfortable with Everton's clean sheet chances than Chelsea's. Branthwaite got me an assist. I was on double Everton defence, which you don't see very often. Ben White got an assist. This is the issue in midfield and attack. So I had Cole Palmer, Kevin De Bruyne, Anthony Gordon, Son, Phil Foden, Alex Isak, and Erling Haaland. That's my attack, and that's why Nicholas Jackson got benched. So I guess you could argue with Son, Gianni. I guess that's the one probably that I should have done, really.
A few were looking at Gordon, but I get why you wouldn't want to bench Gordon because everyone was going, the away form for Newcastle's so bad. But they also beat Sheffield United 8-0 away from home, and Burnley had just conceded 3 XG to Man United.
Yeah, well, if Isak scores a penalty, Gordon probably ends up on double digits as well. So
so it was a tough call between Gordon, Jackson, and Son, and it was really a coin toss this week. I don't think there'll be some hindsight merchants. But there was no right and wrong. I don't think. I think if you looked at bookies' odds to get an attack in return, it was all very similar. I benched Son. Bruno could go in blank. Tough call.
Yeah,
tricky.
Call.
So bench boost
plans for next week then. Yeah, so bench boost. You don't have. You've only got one player on a single game week. Ben White.
No. Pickford and Branthwaite as well.
Oh, sorry, Everton.
I stuck with Everton with that Sheffield United at home game.
You'll be sticking with those 3 single game weekers, and your transfer will be Maguire out. Just the one move.
Yeah, I think so. Originally, I'd sort of kept the 2 Everton lads with the feeling, and Ben White with the feeling that I might change things around a little bit, but then I had to take the hit last week with De Bruyne and Jackson coming in, like I explained before. I don't really want to be taking another hit again, otherwise it starts negating whether it's worth playing the bench boost, really, although you've got to play it at some point. And Maguire getting injured obviously boxes me in a little bit, so I think it'll be Adam Webster for Harry Maguire. Yeah,
that's fair. I think I'm going to go by Brighton defender as well. Geddy's one of our regulars. Question for Ian. The back 4 tonight, I think you mentioned you think it will be Casemiro, Evans, Wan-Bissaka and Dalot, I guess, the back 4. But do you think Bruno plays?
I'd be surprised if he didn't. I mean, this is a guy who plays through anything. He broke his hand a couple of weeks ago and still, just carried on in that game in the semi-final, and then, played the next match with a cast on. He just makes sure he's fit. If Manchester United had more players like Bruno Fernandes, they wouldn't be in anything like the position that they're in because he's just so robust. I know there's obvious criticisms about the way he is at times, but in terms of his injury record and his availability, it's pretty good. So I'm sure he will do absolutely everything he can to play tonight. I've got no inside knowledge either way, but I'd be shocked if he didn't start.
Is it his ankle tonight?
I don't actually know exactly what it is. The suggestion was his ankle. The
only thing that would concern me is like, you just don't want to get him. You need him for the cup. Like, he has to be fit for the cup final. Or you definitely ain't winning it.
The thing is though, I couldn't confidently tell you the last time that Fernandez played without an injury.
That is a fair point. I've heard that before.
The number of times I've interviewed him after the game where he's been stood there and he's had ice strapped around his ankle this season has been week after week after week. Like I say, he broke his hand, a couple of bones in his hand a couple of weeks ago and just carried on. So I think he'll do everything he can to play. Understand your point completely, you know. But United need to win. They need to be in Europe next season. This is a hugely important game for them, especially with Newcastle coming, especially with Arsenal coming as well. Brighton away on the final day is not easy either. So, you know, in that sense, they really need to get a result at Palace tonight. So they'll do everything they can to get him in the team. With the press conference being early, there's not been much information about in terms of who's back and that. But Johnny Evans is back in training, like I said, so I'd expect him to have to play later. And it's going to be makeshift, you know, that back four again, by the sound of it.
Been a few suggestions. Pete in the chat is asking this because he's probably seen a few Man United accounts suggesting it could happen. I can't see it. Ian, Bruno playing centre back. I know he's slotted in there during a game, but that's just, he's never going to start a football match playing centre back. Like you'd see a Dalot playing centre back over Bruno. Casemiro obviously has played there before.
Bruno's centre back is one of the wildest shouts I've
seen a few on Twitter this morning suggesting it, and I think that's probably the similar tweets that Pete has seen. But yeah, bonkers suggestion for me.
I mean, he did it at the very end of the Liverpool final in extra time. But I mean, you know, you'd have
that's extreme circumstances, isn't it? Like,
I mean, you'd have like McTominay could play there. Amrabat, I guess, could play there. Like you say, one of the fullbacks there. Although there's no other fit fullback, so if you move a fullback there, you then got to get someone to play fullback. I'd be even. I don't know what the word would be, but I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if Bruno Fernandes ever started a game at centre back.
Emre has hit us a question to end the show. I've got two routes for the double: either Gordon to Richarlison. Selling Gordon would be a tough gig. Newcastle fixtures are nice. Share to Burn, or alternatively, Share to Burn and Gabriel to Romero. Oh, I wouldn't be bringing in a Spurs defender for an Arsenal defender, even with the extra double game week. Dean, any thoughts on that one? I mean, Share to Burn just makes sense as a standalone transfer.
Share to Burn is fun, isn't it? And if you want to do one of those other ones to bring in a Tottenham player, it's got to be Richarlison instead of Romero. I mean, we've already addressed this in the show that Richarlison looks one of the very few Tottenham players that is actually sharp and hungry right now. I think he'll want to end the season on a bang. You know, went on that good goal scoring run recently. It's faded a bit, but he's got a chance to end the season, remind possibly Ange what he's capable of, but maybe more than that. I think Richarlison is open for transfer this summer, and it'll just want to remind people what he's capable of. So I would definitely go Richarlison.
Do you need to do Richarlison? I mean, could you just not do?
I mean, I don't. If I
Share to Burn.
Yeah, you could just leave it as Share to Burn. But if you really wanted to make the extra one, then do Richarlison, not Romero.
Yeah,
I am tempted to sell Bruno for Richarlison, but I don't think I'd sell Gordon for him. Final thoughts from FPL Focal. Hello, May. Wouldn't mind too much if Bruno sits this one out tonight. He's got Son on the bench, just like me. I'm the same. Like Son 7 points. Yeah, I would prefer them than to see a Bruno start. I think Bruno getting 7 is very possible, but I'd take Son 7. Cool. Lovely to chat, guys. Ian, thank you so much for giving up your bank holiday to come and chat with Dean and I. It's been fun having you.
No worries. You're saving from the gardening and the DIY and any other general chores on a bank holiday. So, yeah, always available on bank holidays, Gianni. Yeah.
Good to know. Well, you need some distraction away from that Nicholas Jackson benching. So maybe the garden's the best place for you this afternoon.
I'm going to go now. Yeah. Thanks.
Dean, when are we back? Friday?
Yeah, Friday, I think, mate. It'd be a big show, won't it? When is the deadline?
Saturday,
mate, 11. Yes, on Saturday, 11.
Yeah,
so,
Saturday.
yeah. So we got a clear run at it that day. So that'll be good to address our final things. I need to definitely get a couple more double game weekers in because, I've got 2 spots on my bench that are just made up of 2 pointless players who have got single game weeks. So we'll chat about that as well.
I look forward to discussing those pointless players. I'm back with Big Man Backer tomorrow at 1 p.m. UK time, which is an hour from the time at the moment. If you're just joining, go back and watch the last hour. We've had a hell of a chat. It's been loads of fun discussing all the big juicy stories from the weekend just gone, but also looking ahead to the bench boost in 37. So go back and watch the last hour. On your way out, guys, please do hit that like button. And of course, subscribe to Chasing Green Arrows for more. I'll be back with Big Man tomorrow. For now, he's been Dean. He's been Ian, I've been Janny, and we've all been chasing green arrows.